Welcome back to another episode of I See How To. I'm Jacob Yankovic with Israel Contracting. I hope that y'all have had an awesome week making your dreams a reality. We have some tips and tricks on this episode that you've probably never seen. I hope you enjoy. I want to give y'all a quick tip here on some sheetrock repair. Yesterday we came in, did a quick skim coat of mud on this just to get the first base down. Today we're going to sand it out, add some texture, and try and match what's in here existing. And then up on the ceiling, we moved a wall previously, and now we've got to match that texture. So it's going to be cool to show you all the process on how that gets done. So one thing that we're using here, this is called a sanding block. And it's basically just sandpaper in the shape of a block on a foam pad. And you can get these at your local hardware store. We're going to take this and we're just putting it up on the wall here and just nice, even, flat pressure because we're trying to get the roughness out of what's here on this wall. And so we're just going to slide it down, and as it goes, it just takes off the high spots. And in doing so, we'll get a nice flat surface to work on, and then we'll add our texture. Another thing about doing a sheetrock repair is that when you're sanding, all that dust is falling on the floor. And as you can see, there's a big pile of really fine powder. And the best way to clean this up is going to be with a damp rag or a washcloth or a sponge. They also make a special bag that you can put in your vacuum, sold at your local hardware stores. We've come in and done a light sanding on it, and now it's time to apply some texture. So we've got some masking tape on here, kind of protecting some areas, and then I'm going to use this shield here coming up this side just to keep stuff from splattering over here on the toilet. You could use a piece of cardboard or another board, or you could even put tape up, just trying to protect the area as best as possible. The trick to applying this stuff in the can is to always keep it moving. If you just hold it down in one spot, it's just going to glob up and it won't look good. So to get it to nice, even finish, just keep the can moving in all different areas. Another thing to keep in mind here is you can always come back. If a spot ends up looking a little bit too light, like it doesn't have enough texture, you can come back down and add a little more to it. But put it on light, see how you like it, see how it matches the surrounding areas, and then come back and add it if you need it. Alright. Well, it's going to take a ladder to finish out the rest of this, so I'll get that in place and get that done. But we're going to move to the ceiling here in just a minute and show you how this texture is done as well. So we've taken a sanding block and we've sanded all the high spots off and made it fairly smooth. It doesn't have to be super perfect on a ceiling because this texture hides a lot of imperfections. But one thing I am taking is this wet rag here, and I'm going along the very edges where this nice smooth coat is feathering into the textural texture that's existing. And what I'm going to do is just rub pretty firmly right along this edge, and it just pushes this feather into the flat and low spots within this texture. And that way I'll be able to match up and blend it real well, and you'll barely be able to notice, if at all, that there was a repair done here. So here we go, we got our mud mixed up, got our fancy texture tool here, which is literally the ball of tape that I whirled up after taking it off of our other projects here in the house for repairs. You probably wouldn't believe it, but this right here will help match this texture closer than any tool that you can actually buy. But depending on what type of air pressure was being used, what type of texture gun with what type of nozzle, it's so hard to recreate that because the whole house was done at the same time originally. So the best way to match it up, by hand. So what we're doing here is just taking our fancy little texture tool, dabbing it in the mud, not submerging it in the mud, but just dipping it, and then coming up here and pressing it onto the ceiling. And you usually get about 1 to 3 stomps, depending on how much mud you've got on your tool here. And we'll just keep going around in various locations. And once we get all this applied, we'll come back with our sheetrock knife, our putty knife, and we'll just knock down these high spots, and it'll create all of these flat spots that you see on the original texture. Oh man. Well, I messed that up a little bit, but it's alright. We'll just make it into a little cloud. We're only happy accidents around here. Look at that. We'll just feather that guy out right there. Perfect. So everything's pretty much dry enough to get started with this part, and we're just going to take our 10-inch putty knife here, and we're just going to really lightly bring it up here to the ceiling and just lightly drag. And the lighter you drag it, the more defined your texture is going to be. The harder you drag it, the flatter your spots are going to get. The important thing here is make sure you clean your knife off after every drag. If you look at the knife here, the mud is built up on it. And if you try and drag back over your ceiling, it's going to drag those streaks right through all of your texture. Another important thing is you don't always want to drag in the same direction. By doing that, you're going to create drag marks and streaks all in the same direction, and it'll start to look too uniform. So run in a crisscross pattern and go back and forth until it looks like you're wanting in your desired texture effect. All right, well here we are. We got the texture finished, and it looks really, really good. If you're looking at it and it looks like it's a little bit different color, it is. That's raw sheetrock mud, and the ceiling is painted. So once everything gets a nice even coat of the same color paint, it's going to blend flawlessly. So happy that y'all could follow along in this process here with us on doing some sheetrock repairs. I hope you learned something. Until next time, I'm Jacob Yankovic with Israel Contracting. We'll see you again.